Welcome to Globewise Entertainment. Today, we're diving into the wild, shocking, and rule-breaking world of the 1970s with 15 exploitation movies that rewrote the rules. From jaw-dropping violence to daring stories that pushed boundaries, these films didn't just entertain. They shocked audiences and changed cinema forever. If you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet, hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into Hollywood's most legendary and controversial films. And we want to hear from you. Which 1970s exploitation movie blew your mind the most? Drop your favorite in the comments below and join the conversation. 1. Coffee, 1973. The vigilante hero Hollywood didn't see coming. In 1973, audiences walked into theaters expecting another low-budget revenge film. But what they got was a cinematic earthquake. Coffee introduced the world to Pam Grier in a way no studio had ever dared before, confident, bold, and completely in control of her story. The film follows Coffee, a nurse who's seen enough of her city being torn apart by crime and corruption. But instead of waiting for justice, she becomes it. Every scene feels like a challenge to the Hollywood norms of the era, putting a black woman at the center, not as a side character or a stereotype, but as a fierce, intelligent, emotionally layered lead who takes down gangsters, crooked officials, and anyone who dares to stand in her way. What made Coffee revolutionary wasn't just the action, it was the attitude. The movie dared to say that heroism could look different, that strength wasn't reserved for the usual leading men. And Pam Grier didn't just play the role, she defined an entire movement. Her performance was so magnetic that even critics who dismissed exploitation films as trash cinema had to acknowledge the impact. Today, Coffee stands as a reminder of how 1970s exploitation films pushed boundaries Hollywood wasn't ready to touch. It proved that audiences were hungry for new kinds of heroes and bold stories told with style, passion, and unapologetic power. 2. The Crazies, 1973. A town turned into a war zone. Imagine waking up one morning to find your peaceful small town transformed into a nightmare, neighbors turning violent, families hiding in basements, and soldiers in gas masks sealing off every exit. That's the chilling world George A. Romero unleashed in The Crazies, and in 1973, audiences had never seen anything like it. The story begins with a mysterious military plane crash that releases a biochemical agent into the town's water supply. At first, people act strangely, but soon, paranoia floods the streets faster than the toxin itself. Friends become unpredictable, parents turn on their loved ones, and the line between infected and terrified survivor becomes impossible to see. What made The Crazies truly groundbreaking wasn't just the panic, it was the way Romero exposed the chaos created by government secrecy and mistrust, long before these themes dominated modern thrillers. This wasn't a monster movie. There were no zombies, no supernatural forces, just ordinary people pushed over the edge by fear and desperation. As the military tries to contain the disaster, the town becomes a battlefield where no one knows who the real enemy is. Is it the infected citizens? The panicked soldiers? Or the government officials scrambling to hide their own mistakes? Romero forces viewers to confront the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the scariest threat isn't the virus, it's the system trying to control it. Raw, relentless, and decades ahead of its time, The Crazies proved that exploitation cinema could deliver big ideas wrapped in low-budget chaos, rewriting the rules for political horror and inspiring countless films that followed. 3. Rolling Thunder, 1977. The revenge that Hollywood was too afraid to tell. When Rolling Thunder hit theaters in 1977, audiences thought they were walking into another gritty post-Vietnam drama. But what they got instead was a raw, unfiltered explosion of vengeance, the kind of story mainstream studios were terrified to touch. Major Charles Rain returns home after years in a POW camp, greeted as a hero, celebrated with parades, medals, and smiling faces. But beneath the applause, his world is hollow. His wife has moved on. His son barely knows him. And the country he fought for feels like a stranger. Then everything shatters. A brutal home invasion leaves Rain scarred, broken, and robbed of the only family he had left. But instead of collapsing under the weight of trauma, something inside him hardens, cold, sharp, and unstoppable. Rain arms himself not with grand speeches or patriotic slogans, but with a sawed-off shotgun, a mechanical hook, and a silent promise. They took everything from me. Now I'm taking it back. What follows isn't flashy. It isn't heroic. It's methodical, relentless justice, the kind of unapologetic revenge arc that pushed 1970s exploitation cinema into darker, more dangerous territory. The final showdown, drenched in neon lights and Texas grit, felt less like a movie climax and more like a warning shot to Hollywood. Audiences were ready for something grittier, harsher, and frighteningly real. Rolling Thunder wasn't just a revenge film, it became a blueprint. A film whispered about, passed around, rediscovered by directors like Quentin Tarantino, and respected for daring to show trauma not as spectacle, but as transformation. This was the moment exploitation cinema proved it could rewrite the rules, one shell cartridge at a time. 4. Foxy Brown, 1974. The film that redefined female power in exploitation cinema. When Foxy Brown blasted onto screens in 1974, audiences weren't just watching another exploitation movie, they were witnessing the birth of an icon. With unmatched confidence, fire, and charisma, Pam Grier transformed Foxy Brown into a character that would forever reshape how Hollywood portrayed women in action films. Foxy wasn't a sidekick. She wasn't a damsel. She wasn't waiting for someone to save her. She was the one kicking down the door, exposing the villains, and taking justice into her own hands. At a time when female leads were often limited to background roles, Pam Grier delivered a groundbreaking performance. She brought strength, sensitivity, and style, proving that audiences were ready, eager, even, for a heroine who could stand shoulder to shoulder with any male action star. And the 1970s had never seen anything like it. Behind the scenes, director Jack Hill crafted a story that balanced gritty street energy with raw emotional power. But it was Grier who elevated the film from cult favorite to cultural milestone. Her commanding presence helped turn Foxy Brown into the defining title of the blaxploitation era, sparking conversations about representation, empowerment, and the power of bold storytelling. The film's impact echoed far beyond the decade. Foxy's fearless attitude inspired generations of filmmakers, from Quentin Tarantino to modern-day creators who still reference her legacy. And even today, the character remains a symbol of strength, independence, and unapologetic style. Foxy Brown didn't just follow the rules of exploitation cinema, it rewrote them. And in doing so, it proved that a powerful female lead could carry an entire genre on her shoulders. 5. Switchblade Sisters, 1975. The girl gang revolution Hollywood didn't see coming. When Switchblade Sisters hit drive-ins in 1975, audiences expected a typical low-budget exploitation flick. What they got instead was a rebellious, fast-moving shockwave that challenged the way female-led stories were told in American cinema. The movie follows the Dagger Debs, a fierce girl gang navigating a gritty urban world ruled by loyalty, rivalry, and power. But what made the film stand out wasn't the chaos, it was the attitude. These girls weren't side characters, love interests, or background noise. They were the leaders, the decision-makers, and the ones driving the story forward at full speed. Directed by Jack Hill, known for shaping some of exploitation cinema's most iconic characters, Switchblade Sisters broke rules simply by letting young women be bold, outspoken, and fearless. The film presented a gritty coming-of-age story wrapped in stylized 70s energy, bold dialogue, stylized confrontations, and a rebellious spirit that spoke directly to the youth of the era. What kept the movie alive long after its original release was its cult following. In the 90s, filmmaker Quentin Tarantino championed the movie, helping revive its status as an underground classic. For many fans, Switchblade Sisters became more than a piece of exploitation history. It became a celebration of cinematic rebellion. Today, it stands as one of the most influential girl gang films ever made, proving that even in the rough-and-tumble world of 70s exploitation, powerful female characters could steal the spotlight, rewrite expectations, and carve out their own legacy. In short, Switchblade Sisters wasn't just a movie, it was a revolution with attitude, style, and a sharp edge that still cuts through Hollywood history. 6. Vanishing Point, 1971. The high-octane rebel that redefined the open road. Few films from the 1970s embody the raw, rebellious spirit of exploitation cinema quite like Vanishing Point. Released in 1971, this adrenaline-charged road thriller didn't just push boundaries. It demolished them, leaving behind a trail of dust, chrome, and counterculture energy that still echoes through Hollywood today. At the center of the story is Kowalski, a mysterious ex-cop and Vietnam veteran who takes on an impossible dare: deliver a white Dodge Challenger from Denver to San Francisco in record-breaking time. No backstory. No exposition. Just pure attitude and a relentless desire to outrun the world. But Vanishing Point wasn't just another car chase movie, it was a cinematic rebellion. The film blended existential undertones with high-speed action in a way audiences had never seen. Its unapologetic pacing, sun-scorched landscapes, and unapologetic defiance of authority turned Kowalski into a folk hero for an entire generation questioning the system. And then there's the soundtrack, a mix of rock, soul, and desert mystique that transformed every mile into a statement. In an era of political tension and cultural shifts, Vanishing Point tapped into a feeling many viewers couldn't put into words: the urge to break free, even if only for a moment. Despite mixed reviews at release, the movie became a cult phenomenon worldwide. Filmmakers from Quentin Tarantino to Edgar Wright have openly cited it as a major inspiration. Even modern car chase cinema, from Mad Max, Fury Road to Baby Driver, owes a debt to this lean, fearless masterpiece. In the world of 1970s exploitation films, Vanishing Point didn't just rewrite the rules. It proved that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones racing full speed toward the unknown. 7. Thriller, A Cruel Picture, 1973. The movie that pushed revenge cinema to its limits. In 1973, Sweden released a film so bold, so visually striking, and so controversial that it quickly became a global cult legend. Thriller, A Cruel Picture, also known internationally as They Call Her One Eye, didn't just join the revenge cinema wave of the 1970s, it redefined it. The film follows Frigga, a quiet, isolated young woman whose world changes in the most devastating way. After a traumatic encounter leaves her unable to speak, she is lured into a dangerous underworld by someone she trusts. What follows is not sensationalized action, but a slow, chilling descent into captivity, control, and survival. The film's strength lies not in shock factors, but in its emotionally charged storytelling and the determination of a woman who refuses to stay broken. But what truly made this movie revolutionary was what came after. Instead of portraying helplessness, Thriller turns its focus to empowerment through skill, discipline, and strategy. Frigga secretly trains, learning self-defense, precision shooting, and tactical driving, preparing for the moment she can reclaim her life. Her transformation from victim to avenger became one of the most iconic revenge arcs ever put on film. Director Bo Arne Vibenius shot the movie with a gritty realism that felt almost documentary-like. The slow-motion sequences, the stark snowy landscapes, and the haunting, wordless performance by Christina Lindberg created an atmosphere that was both beautiful and terrifying. The movie style would later inspire countless filmmakers, including Quentin Tarantino, who openly paid tribute to Frigga's look in Kill Bill. That black leather coat, that calm stare, And of course, the unforgettable eye patch. Thriller. A Cruel Picture is more than an exploitation film. It's a raw, uncompromising story about resilience, about how one woman, pushed to the edge, refuses to give up her identity or her power. And for 1973, that was a message far ahead of its time. Even today, 50 years later, the film remains a benchmark of bold filmmaking, challenging, uncomfortable, but undeniably influential. 8. Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS, 1975. The controversial queen of shock cinema. Few films from the 1970s dared to shock audiences the way Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS did. Directed by Don Edmonds, this notorious exploitation movie is infamous for its unflinching portrayal of cruelty and sadism within a Nazi prison camp. At the center of the storm was Ilsa, played by the striking Diane Thorne, a commandant whose cold, calculating brutality made her one of cinema's most unforgettable female villains. What made Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS revolutionary for its time wasn't just the explicit content. It was the audacious way it blurred the lines between horror, exploitation, and dark humor. The film exploited shock value and taboos, from graphic violence to sexual tension, creating a cinematic experience that left audiences simultaneously horrified and fascinated. It challenged the era's conventional storytelling, daring to center a woman as the ultimate embodiment of terror, a role traditionally reserved for men. Despite its extreme content, Ilsa became a cult classic, spawning sequels and influencing countless filmmakers in the exploitation and horror genres. It's a prime example of 1970s cinema pushing boundaries, exploring human cruelty and power in ways mainstream films wouldn't touch. Watching it today is like peering into a bold, twisted experiment in filmmaking, a stark reminder of an era when rules were meant to be rewritten and audiences were tested like never before. Fun fact, Diane Thorne's portrayal of Ilsa became so iconic that she was often typecast as a femme fatale of horror, cementing her status as a legend in exploitation cinema. 9. The Last House on the Left, 1972. A shock that changed horror forever. In 1972, Wes Craven dropped a bombshell on the cinematic world with The Last House on the Left, a raw and relentless horror film that refused to play by the rules. This wasn't just a movie, it was a gut-punching experience that blurred the lines between exploitation and art. Inspired by Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring, Craven's vision was gritty, unflinching, and terrifyingly real. The story follows two teenage girls whose vacation turns into a nightmare when they encounter a group of sadistic criminals. What makes the film unforgettable isn't just the shocking violence. It's the audacity to make the audience sit in the aftermath of terror, witnessing the consequences unfold in a disturbingly intimate way. Craven's fearless approach to storytelling challenged censorship norms and pushed boundaries that few dared to touch at the time. Critics were divided and audiences were horrified, yet the film's influence on horror and exploitation cinema cannot be overstated. It paved the way for the home invasion subgenre and inspired generations of filmmakers who wanted to shock, provoke, and push limits. Today, it's remembered as a grim milestone in 1970s cinema, a daring experiment in fear that forever rewrote the rules of what horror could do. Fun fact, Wes Craven reportedly filmed the infamous climax in a way that maximized shock without traditional cinematic polish, giving it a raw realism that still unsettles viewers today. 10. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. In 1974, director Tobe Hooper unleashed a film that would forever change the horror genre, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Shot on a shoestring budget of less than $300,000, this gritty, almost documentary-style film wasn't just a movie, it was a raw, unsettling experience that made audiences squirm in their seats. Inspired by real-life crimes, Hooper pushed boundaries with a terrifying new villain, Leatherface, a chainsaw-wielding madman whose grotesque mask of human skin became instantly iconic. Unlike the polished horror of its time, the film's shaky camera work, relentless tension, and shocking imagery made it feel brutally real, giving viewers an adrenaline-fueled ride they couldn't escape. What truly set it apart from other 1970s exploitation films was its psychological impact. Instead of relying on gore alone, Hooper crafted a sense of relentless dread, proving that fear could be more powerful than any blood-soaked spectacle. Audiences left the theater terrified, outraged, and fascinated, a combination that made the film an overnight cult sensation. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre didn't just scare, it rewrote the rules of horror, influencing countless slasher films that followed, from Halloween to Friday the 13th. Its legacy is undeniable, a low-budget shocker that proved a simple premise, executed with raw intensity, could become an enduring cultural phenomenon. 11. Taxi Driver, 1976. Scars of the City Streets. In the neon-lit, rain-soaked streets of 1970s New York, Taxi Driver wasn't just a movie, it was a mirror reflecting the city's darkest corners. Martin Scorsese's masterpiece dives deep into the fractured psyche of Travis Bickle, a lonely, disillusioned cab driver whose nights are haunted by crime, corruption, and moral decay. Robert De Niro delivers a chilling, career-defining performance, portraying a man teetering on the edge of sanity. The infamous line, "You talkin' to me," isn't just iconic, it's a window into the mind of a man grappling with isolation, rage, and obsession. What makes Taxi Driver fit into the exploitation era is its raw, unflinching depiction of urban decay, sexual exploitation, and vigilante violence. It pushed the boundaries of what mainstream cinema dared to show, earning controversy, critical acclaim, and a permanent place in film history. From the grimy streets to the haunting jazz score by Bernard Herrmann, every frame oozes tension and unease. Taxi Driver didn't just tell a story, it rewrote the rules of exploitation cinema by blending psychological horror, social commentary, and unrelenting realism in a way audiences had never seen before. If you think you've seen urban thrillers, think again. Travis Bickle's Lonely Cab isn't just a ride, it's a descent into the dark heart of a city and the human mind. 12. Death Race 2000, 1975. When carnage became entertainment. Imagine a world where road rage isn't just dangerous, it's mandatory entertainment. That's the wild premise of Death Race 2000, a 1975 exploitation classic that pushed boundaries and shocked audiences worldwide. Set in a dystopian future, the film follows a deadly cross-country race where drivers score points for hitting pedestrians. Yes, you read that right. People are targets, and the more you collect, the closer you get to victory. The film's audacious mix of over-the-top violence, black comedy, and political satire was unheard of at the time. Director Paul Bartle and producer Roger Corman didn't just make a movie, they crafted a biting commentary on society's obsession with media, violence, and spectacle, all wrapped in a high-octane, tire-squealing thrill ride. What made Death Race 2000 unforgettable wasn't just its gore, it was the charisma of its cast, led by David Carradine and Sylvester Stallone in his pre-Rocky days. The movie's outrageous characters, from the patriotic Frankenstein to the quirky yet deadly competitors, cemented it as a cult phenomenon. This film wasn't afraid to break rules. Satirical, shocking, and utterly unfiltered, it influenced a wave of 1970s exploitation cinema, proving that you could mix thrills, social commentary, and controversy, and audiences would eat it up. Its legacy lives on, inspiring remakes and homages decades later, reminding us that sometimes, chaos makes for the most compelling cinema. Fun fact, despite its violent premise, Death Race 2000 was originally intended as a dark comedy, making the carnage feel almost cartoonishly absurd, but no less shocking for its time. 13. Suspiria, 1977. When it comes to redefining horror in the 1970s, Dario Argento's Suspiria is a spine-chilling masterpiece that still influences filmmakers today. This Italian giallo classic isn't just a movie, it's an experience. Argento took the exploitation genre, known for its shock value and sensationalism, and elevated it into an artistic, nightmarish spectacle. Set in a mysterious German dance academy, Suspiria follows a young American ballerina who discovers that the school is a front for dark, supernatural forces. What made this film groundbreaking wasn't just its blood-soaked scenes, but Argento's use of vivid, surreal visuals, expressionist lighting, and an unforgettable soundtrack by Goblin that turned every step into a heartbeat of terror. Unlike typical 70s exploitation films that relied solely on gore or sex appeal, Suspiria married style and substance, creating a cinematic language of fear that felt almost operatic. Its influence can be seen in modern horror classics, from Halloween to Midsommar, proving that exploitation films could transcend shock value and become cultural touchstones. Whether you love horror for its suspense, artistry, or sheer audacity, Suspiria is a reminder that the 70s were a time when filmmakers weren't afraid to break the rules and redefine genres. 14. I Spit on Your Grave, 1978. If there's a film that made audiences squirm, gasp, and debate morality all at once, it's I Spit on Your Grave. Released in 1978, this controversial exploitation movie became infamous for its unflinching portrayal of violence, revenge, and female empowerment, or at least a very twisted version of it. The story follows Jennifer Hills, a young writer who moves to a quiet countryside home for inspiration. What starts as a peaceful retreat turns into a nightmare when she is brutally attacked by a group of local men. The film doesn't shy away from showing the horrors Jennifer endures, which sparked outrage and intense criticism, and rightfully so. Many theaters banned it, and it became a lightning rod for censorship debates worldwide. But here's where I Spit on Your Grave rewrote the rules of exploitation cinema. Unlike many films of the era that treated women purely as victims or eye candy, this movie turned the tables. Jennifer transforms from prey to predator, meticulously plotting a revenge so brutal it shocked even the most hardened viewers. The graphic nature of her retaliation made the film legendary, and it forced audiences to confront uncomfortable questions about justice, trauma, and the human thirst for revenge. Despite, or perhaps because of, its controversy, I Spit on Your Grave became a cult classic and inspired remakes, discussions on women in horror, and debates that continue to this day. It wasn't just a movie about exploitation, it was a mirror reflecting society's darkest impulses and the terrifying consequences when those impulses are unleashed. Whether you see it as shocking cinema or a cautionary tale, there's no denying its impact. It shattered taboos, provoked conversation, and cemented its place in the annals of 1970s exploitation cinema. 15. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural earthquake. This dystopian, visually striking, and brutally provocative film pushed boundaries that no one dared touch in the early 1970s. Centered on the sociopathic antihero Alex Delarge, Kubrick explored the darkest corners of human nature: ultraviolence, mind control, and the chilling tension between free will and societal control. When it premiered, audiences were shocked, critics were polarized, and governments debated censorship. Its mix of surreal, operatic imagery and an unsettling classical soundtrack made viewers both mesmerized and horrified. Beyond the controversy, it redefined what exploitation cinema could achieve: a high-art film that exploited human instincts and fears to spark dialogue about morality, authority, and the human psyche. Kubrick's audacious vision influenced countless filmmakers and forever changed how cinema approached controversial subjects. From its disturbing ultraviolence scenes to its hypnotic, avant-garde style, A Clockwork Orange proved that exploitation wasn't just about shock. It could be thought-provoking, stylish, and unforgettable. Why it matters. This movie broke the rules by daring to show the consequences of a society obsessed with control while maintaining a cinematic style that still influences filmmakers today. Its legacy is a reminder that true exploitation cinema challenges the audience and stays in their minds long after the credits roll. That's a wrap on Globewise Entertainment. Those were 15 exploitation movies from the 1970s that completely rewrote the rules of cinema, bold, shocking, and unforgettable. If you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into Hollywood's most legendary and controversial films. Now it's your turn. Which of these 1970s exploitation classics shocked you the most or left a lasting impression? Drop your favorite in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next cinematic adventure.